Track wrestling here in Las Vegas for Greco-Roman World Team Training Camp with Greco-Roman coach Matt Lindland. It's your second training camp. You had base camp up in Oregon here a while back. What have you learned about your team thus far?
I'm learning a lot about these guys. I mean, one is, they want more individual time to work on their stuff, and so we've kind of created plans around that to give them a lot more time to take some more ownership of their plans, and autonomy, and just creative freedom. But that requires that they're disciplined in the areas that we need them disciplined in. So if we have certain structure things, we're gonna get through that, and then we're gonna give them a lot more freedom and autonomy to work their plans and their structure that they want. They still need a little more guidance in that area, but they're doing an outstanding job of getting good use of their time and efforts.
We talked on the Matt podcast here a couple weeks ago. I brought up this question, but maybe for our audience that didn't listen to that podcast, something that's pretty unique is only 2 carryovers from last year's World Team in Paris, and Ellis Coleman, Giangelo Hancock. You said you could see this coming a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely felt like, whenever you bring in a new coach to a program, it's, he wants to get his guys on the team. And, I feel like Ellis and Tracy are definitely my guys, they're a part of this program, they've been part of since I've been here. But yeah, it's, there's not many carryovers. The kind of one guy that's been around forever, Sam, but other than that, it's pretty much guys that understand what my philosophy is and what I want to see out of the athletes, and that's, going out and performing at the world level. We're not about being the best guy in the country, we're about being the best guys in the world, and that's a completely different mindset. And I think the guys that are on this team have that mindset, and they're moving in that direction to get that goal.
Let's go down the lineup a little bit. You mentioned Sam Hazelwinkle, 35 years old, first-time World Team member in Greco-Roman, obviously an Olympian in freestyle. College head coach right now. Does that bring a little bit different dimension to what's going on in the training camps and things like that you've got another coach, so to speak, on staff here? What does he see that maybe brings something different to the table here?
Oh, I think Sam brings a lot of things to the table. He brings leadership, he brings experience. He knows what it takes to train and how to train and prepare and what the purpose of this is. And he does a good job of being a bridge between the coaches and the athletes. He's still, very connected with his teammates and his athletes, but, some of them look at him like a grandpa, others like an uncle, but he's definitely a part of the team, and he's definitely a part of what's going on in every aspect of it. And we love having Sam just because he can lead by example, and he can also lead when he needs to step up and explain things to the athletes and give them a different perspective. I think he does a good job of bridging that gap.
Dalton Roberts, 60 kilos, lost in the final seconds of the U23 trials, turns around a couple weeks later, wins the senior trials. I know you're pretty high on him, and from talking to you overseas last year, you really like him. What do you appreciate most about him?
He does things right. We had a lot of discussions in camp about the 5 things that we need to get better as a program, and the first one was communication, and then accountability, and then professionalism, taking ownership of your own plan. And it's one of those things. If the guys want to if they want that freedom and autonomy, they've got to be accountable. They got to hold themselves accountable. They got to hold one another accountable as well. And Dalton always does a great job of holding himself accountable, leading by example. Gives everything in every practice. He doesn't hold back. If guys just looked across the room and saw what Dalton was doing and just kind of followed that lead, I think we would continue to head in the right direction like we are right now. But there's a lot of things I like about Dalton: his personality, his ethic, his work ethic, his virtues. He's just a quality human being across the board, and he's just, I see something in him that he's got a goal in mind, he's going to get there, and he's going to be patient about it, and he's going to stick with the process. He doesn't get too frustrated. Like you said, he lost 2 weeks before that. Didn't set him back. You know, he lost one of the matches in the series of 3, and I saw in his eyes when he walked off that first mat, it was like, that ain't happening again. I mean, you could just tell by his body language, the way he carried himself. Like, it's like he was nodding, like, I figured this out. I know what I got to do. I know what I did wrong. I know how to fix it. I'm going to go make those adjustments, and I'm going to come back and make this team. And you could read that in his body language, and obviously he did that. He came back and won the next 2 matches, put himself on the team, and got recovered from that process, and came to camp ready to train. Came to camp prepared. You know, I've been around a lot since he's been on a lot of our teams. He's been on junior teams, and we send out plans, and he gives us reports back and says what we can do to make it better, what we can do to adjust that. He is that #1 guy on communication. He shows the guys what it takes to be a good communicator. It's not being afraid to come up to your coaches and telling them that maybe I need something different, maybe I need to make an adjustment. And then we discuss it together, and ultimately it's his plan. But he takes ownership of everything he does. He's an extremely humble guy and grateful for his opportunities, but he takes extreme ownership in everything he does.
You mentioned 5 things that you guys needed to get better at, and you mentioned a couple of them there. What else is on the list?
Okay, so we'll start out with sense of urgency was #1. We actually, that fell somewhere in the mix. Sense of urgency we ended up moving it up to #1 because basically everything we need to do. We need to get better at communication. We need to have better accountability and professionalism on and off the mat. And then, shit, I gotta get my notes, but I had him. You just threw it at me here for a second. I've got the other one. I know the guys are gonna look at me and go, "What the hell?" But I got them in my notes. I'll come back. I'll get you that other one. Communication, accountability, professionalism, sense of urgency, and I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay. We'll come back to it if you.
It'll come up.
All right. Jesse Thielke, watching him in this training camp the last couple days, you can tell he's a guy who coaches.
Oh yeah.
And a guy who's a fanatic about technique. What are the differences between him now in 2018 versus him in 2015, 2016 that you've noticed?
I don't think it's a secret. He's just getting his life on. I think he's changing his lifestyle and the way he approaches everything he does, and he's being accountable. He's being responsible, and he's doing those things that he's doing what Dalton's doing. He's communicating his needs, and we're helping him out with those, you know. And so the other one was they wanted more say in the plan. They wanted the athletes wanted more say in the plan, and that's really what Jesse brings to that. Is he come, you know, it's like if you want say, have something you want to do. Don't just say I don't like what we're doing and change it, but come with something positive, something productive in a positive direction. Let's move in that direction. Let's not just move away from something we don't like. Let's move towards something that we want. And that's what Jesse's doing. He's moving in a direction that he wants to see himself in. He wants to see himself as a better human being, as a better individual, as a better coach, a better leader, and he's moving in that direction. And I think that's showing. I mean, everybody sees it. I mean, it's a big sweeping change. It's like a 180-degree turn of, you know, I'm doing my own thing, I'm going my own direction, and I'm moving away from everything because I don't like what we're doing, to now I'm moving towards something. I'm moving towards what I want to do, and I have a plan in mind, and I'm going to get there. And I don't know if there's a better wrestler on our team as far as you said technical. He's very technically minded, but he understands where to be and where his opponent's going to be before he's there, and he's already ready to be there. I think Gretzky used to say, you know, I'm not chasing the puck. I'm going to be where the puck's going to be, and he's always where the opponent's going to be, and he's ready to attack and set up and execute his techniques.
How refreshing is that to see a guy get it together like that?
It makes my heart warm, man, because he's an incredible human being. Just needed to grow up, needed to figure out what his purpose is in life and where he wants to be. And I think he sees himself as that coach down the road. And you gotta have your shit together if you wanna be a coach. You gotta know who you are. You gotta have your own ethos. You gotta have your own philosophy. And he's developing that now as a leader in our program. So we're happy to have that. We need more leaders in our program, and Jesse's stepping up and showing us that.
Are you seeing the changes you wanted to see in Hancock this year?
I'm seeing the changes in the entire team.
Yeah.
And really, it's maturity. It's maturation on their part, and it takes time. It takes time. I mean, he just turned 21 last week. I mean, I was married and had kids at 21, so I was kind of forced to grow up. But I mean, we've all made those same adjustments and trying to figure out. This is a very tough time in your life when you're going from a child to a man, and we want to claim that there's some middle ground in between there. There's some made up concept called adolescence, and I don't know when that it created that. I think that's just an excuse to still be a child. Is this myth of adolescence? But really, it's I'm a child. I do childish things. I'm a man. I do things that men do, and that's the difference. And right there, he's trying to make that adjustment, and he's really doing a good job making that adjustment now. He's on the right track. He's on the right track, and I'm going to stay positive because he's doing the positive things. He's doing the right things within our program. He can always get better and continue to grow, and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing him do those things. He still has some, shows up late sometimes, and that's just not acceptable in the professional world. And we're professional athletes here. We're competing at the highest level of our sport, and they got to hold themselves accountable. But in the meantime, our coaching staff will continue to help him with that accountability. His teammates are, like I said, doing a better job of helping one another be accountable. They got to hold themselves accountable first, because it's kind of hard to call somebody out when you're not doing the right stuff either. So if we can just all continue to get on that same page, I think we're going to be all right.
Last November, he was up at heavyweight at U23s. He's back at 97. What kind of dialogue took place there on maybe putting that plan for 2020 at heavyweight on the shelf and going back to 97?
I think a lot of things. I think he was probably just testing the waters and seeing if that was his weight class. He just came off. He was on a junior world team. He was on a senior world team. By the time U23s came around, it was like, I don't know if and I don't blame him. I don't blame him for that. See if that's a good fit, and maybe that's the time. It certainly wasn't the time at senior worlds to just make that adjustment, but. I don't know. I mean, I'm not too hung up on that, really. I think he went up, checked out the weight class, tested the waters, and said, at least through this quad, I'm definitely not 130 kilo wrestler yet. That's gonna make a lot of. I gotta make a lot of adjustments to be a 130 kilo wrestler. It's a different style of wrestling. He's a slick, athletic guy. He's very explosive. Those big guys, they're pushed, they're strong, they're hard to get through their defense. So I don't know if I put too much thought into that, other than just seeing where I'm at and figuring it out. And he figured it out, and now he's got a direction, he's got somewhere to move towards. So
you look at your feelings coming out of Poland, and then where you're at now. How did you get to this point? What kind of things went into turning things around, getting people to, act like professionals, like you're talking about, to live like the kind of lifestyle you're looking for them to live? Did you guys kind of have to clear the air a little bit?
Yeah, I think you got to lay out expectations, but then it's consistently delivering that same message about culture over and over and over. You can't just talk about it and put it on the shelf and think it's going to happen. You've got to keep visiting that every day. You got to remind these athletes about the culture. But when they take ownership and they come up with the things we want to get better at, and then it's their plan. And it's not the culture that I'm trying to build. It's the culture that we're trying to build as a program, and I think that's really important. And maybe I came in with here's what I'd like to see, and instead of let it a little more organically create. And I think that's really what came out of that first camp is we got to really know each other. We stayed in the same house for 2 weeks out there. We ate together every meal, and spent a lot of time off the mat, training and doing some other activities together and building that culture, and not just talking about it. It was actually living it day in, day out. The guys did a really great job. I mean, we stayed at Donor's house, and when we left the house, the house was in great shape. The sheets were off the beds, they were in the washers, they just did the right things consistently. So I'm happy, and they're just changing the way they're looking at this. They're being a little more serious about it, looking at themselves as a professional athlete and holding one another accountable, holding themselves accountable. So, it just seems like we just got to continue to visit those things day in and day out. It's not a one-time thing. It's culture's an everyday thing.
Adam Kuhn not here this week, back in Colorado Springs, right, with some big guys back there. But we're here at the South Point, and last time he wrestled at the South Point, finished second to Robbie Smith at the Open. Tremendous gains that he made between then and the World Team Trials. What have you seen from him since?
Well, I see incredible effort and attitude, and some real leadership qualities in Adam. So we keep talking about these teams, and we're seeing that these guys are developing as leaders. We had a couple guys that came in, like Sam Hazeman, who's a head coach and a father and a husband. He understands what leadership's about. But so does Adam. He was a team captain, and he brings a different perspective to it. What I'm seeing right now is he's going through a training phase where he's not where, if he's stuck with the same way, he could stay consistent, but he's not going to grow. And right now he's been a little bit like, man, I'm trying new things and they're not working, and I'm frustrated, and this is different, and he's got to get through that phase. And he understands that that's a process as well. He understands that there's a learning curve there, that he's going to dip down a little bit before he comes back up. And so just the fact that he's an intelligent guy and he understands that, but it's still an emotional process. It's a very hard process. We've all been through that when we try to learn a new skill or make some major adjustments, whether it's lifestyle or athletics, or I'm just trying to learn a new language, whatever that is. There's going to be a lot of struggle. There's going to be some road bumps along the way, and just getting through those and staying the course, and knowing, having the faith in the process that it's going to work. It's going to work. So right now, while he's out there, I think we're going to start seeing this when we get back, and the timing's right, because we're going to be heading over to Germany. He's going to be able to test this stuff that he's been working on, and he's embraced it, man. The guy's he's all in. He is all in. If what he was doing before, and we wanted to tweak it, he's going to try it. He's going to get there. It's a struggle right now. It's a little bit of a change in dynamics and just a slight paradigm shift that he's got to make. But he's got the mind for it. He's got the desire, and he's going to do it. So I think when we get back from this camp and he gets done with his training camp in Colorado, and we head over to Germany, and we get him a little rest and recovery, I think he's going to go out there and be a new man. And we're going to figure out where he's at right now at that pre-world tour, and figure out what adjustments we got to make to close the gap between getting him on the podium and where he is right now today. But he's going to make those adjustments. We saw that he was capable of doing that between that short period between April and June. He made some big adjustments in the way he wrestled. But he only had to prepare for, really for Robbie, to get ready for that. But he's got to prepare for some of the best guys in the world. And right now he's got world medalist training with him, so he knows where that gap is and he's got to close. And that's a little frustrating, because he wants it now and wants it to happen right now. And it's going to take him a little time. It's going to take him a couple months. And he's going to put the time to work in, and we'll get there.
What are the biggest challenges Kamal faces in trying to make the jump from doing what he did at the junior level to doing it on the senior level?
The biggest challenges I think he faces is he's got to just look at it like he did last year. I'm going to go out, I'm going to put on a show, I'm going to score points, hopefully at the end of the day I have more points than my opponent. I love Kamal's attitude, the way he approaches matches. A little different than the way I approach things. You know, I wanted to be physical. I wanted to make this a really miserable experience on my opponent. He wants to entertain and score a lot of points, which is incredible. It's fun to watch. It's refreshing to watch. I love that attitude. He wants to out-slick you. He wants to outperform you. But he's not necessarily a physical guy as far as he wants to beat you up and stand in front of you. He wants to make angles and attack from awkward level changes. And so I just love I love the way he approaches the sport. Like I said, it's super refreshing to see an athlete with that kind of freedom. And he's able to have a lot of freedom in the way he wrestles because, you know, he trains hard, he works hard, he's disciplined. And he doesn't take the training too seriously. He doesn't get caught up in things aren't working in training because he understands that that's training. And when it becomes showtime and the lights come on and he's going to go out there and perform, but I don't really know if he's got to make a lot of adjustments. I think he's just got to keep growing and getting better and improving in different areas. And he continually does. He reinvents himself all the time. He finds something new. Takes a new position or a technique and he plays with it and then he throws it away for a while and then he comes back to it later and incorporates that into his training. And I've learned a lot from watching Kamal. He makes things look so easy. And I know it's not because I've been out there on that stage. I've been out there and competed at the highest level. Nothing's easy. I mean, you're wrestling the best guys in the world that are, you know, they're trying to take everything from you. And certain things he does, I can't figure out how he does it until I just continue to watch him and watch his film and start to break it down. And then he makes simple adjustments, but they're critical adjustments. The way he level changes with his head up, his hips in. He doesn't hinge at the waist. He's got a real knack for doing things well. And sometimes he doesn't know what he does, but it works. And then we come back and we have those discussions of, I don't know, you know, I ask him, like, how do you do that, or why did that work? And he starts to come up with some answer, and I'm like, I don't think that's the answer. And then I go back and evaluate it, and then I come back and we talk, and I go, man, I think it's just because you just dropped straight underneath this guy. And he came flying over the top of you because you created so much good pressure with your legs. And then we start messing around with the stuff in the room some more, and then all of a sudden he actually has a real cognitive understanding of what he's doing, and then I think that makes it so much tighter in connections for him. But I love the way he competes. I love the way he trains. He does. He's got a great attitude and effort on the team all the time, and he's got a real desire to be a leader. And we've given him a lot of opportunities to put him in those different roles as a leader in our program. I mean, look at the environment we're training in out here. We've got our junior Pan Am team, we've got our junior world team, we got some under 23 guys, and he's in the same age as them, but he still has to step up and be a leader because he's a world champ. I mean, it's just an obligation that he created upon himself. I mean, he put himself in that position, and when that happened, I think it was overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I got to be a leader now. But now he's embraced it. He understands the obligation. He's embraced it, and he's looking for opportunities to get better and improve as a leader. And he's doing a great job.
We could be here for an hour probably. There's enough stuff to talk about, but I don't know if you have the time for that. But anyway, I want to get to Ellis Coleman and John J. Chavez and Patrick Martinez and Jordan Spieler and give you an opportunity to talk about those guys as well and what you've seen from them over the course of the last couple months since they've made the team.
Okay. I mean, all those guys have a desire to come here and train the right way, and we're seeing it. Day two. Great attitudes and efforts across the board. I mean, I think it's the culture that we've been working on for a few years. It's starting to really sink in what it's going to take, and I think the guys understand it. Not that they do everything right all the time, but when they make a mistake, they make an adjustment, they get better, they improve, and taking ownership. I think we talked about that earlier about some other guys that like Dalton that has really extreme ownership of everything. I think guys are feeding off one another. They're lifting each other up, and we're growing as a team across the board. And you know, Jordan's had some moments where he's down, and he showed up to this camp and had a great attitude. Came in before camp started, grabbed me, sat down with me. We had good talks and discussions, and he's living up to what he said he was going to do. He was going to come in here and give a lot of effort and have a great attitude, and he's doing that. I've seen Patrick have really moments of good leadership, and I've seen him have moments where he wants to behave like a kid and act like a child sometimes, and he fixes it now. It's not long. It's like, I had that thought, now I'm going to go a different direction. And we know what's right and wrong, and that was kind of the theme. It was like, do we want a bunch of rules, and do we want structures? Because I'm not like a guy that wants to lay down a bunch of rules. I think we're competing at the highest level. We know what the right thing to do is, the wrong thing to do. We just got to make the right decision, and that's not always easy. I mean, we've talked about this as well. I mean, we're kind of getting back in, you know, this is getting secular discussion, but we talked about, you know, the athletes' age is dropping. You know, of medal podium ready guys. You know, it went from 26 in London to 23.1, something around there. It's closer to 22 years old. The average age is dropping down. It's going to continue to drop. If we're seeing anything in a trend, that's what's happening. Guys are getting better at a younger age. I have a lot of theories on why that is, but it's a reality. You just got to look at the statistics and the numbers and the reality. And so we've got to mature at an earlier age. We've got to get more professional at an earlier age, but at the same time, biology's inhibiting us because our prefrontal lobes are not fully developed until we're 25. So the decision-making process of the brain, and I understand that, I get this. It's not an excuse, it's just reality. You know, we don't always make great decisions when we're in our early 20s. It's part of the maturation process, and that's just what it is. But we've got to deal with that, and we still got to come back and think about what it is. It's like, before I take an action, just pause, think about what the best course of action is, and choose that path.
Great stuff, Matt. Anything else for us?
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff there.